Kemi stood there petrified as she read the text message that arrived her phone.
I know what you did. If you don't want anyone else to know, you will do exactly as I say.
Kemi stood there frozen, her eyes widening in terror as her heart suddenly began to beat like a drum. She looked around, terrified, wondering who could have sent the text, when suddenly another text dropped, informing her that she dropped her pen. Kemi looked to the ground and realized that she truly dropped her pen. She could not believe that someone out there knew her deepest, darkest secret. She was being watched, and this made her so terrified that her hands began to shake, knowing that someone in the school was watching her every move. She bent down slowly to pick up the pen, glancing around the busy schoolyard, hoping to see any sign that would give away who this blackmailer could be. Every student and teacher suddenly seemed like a suspect, and Kemi's breath began to shallow. It was as if time stood still in that moment as everyone else walked past her, not recognizing the misery that she was now engulfed in. Her deepest, darkest secret was now in the hands of someone who was out to ruin her seemingly perfect life. Just as she stood there, lost in her own thoughts, her friend Tara hurried over and snapped her back to reality with a sharp tug.
I've been searching all over for you. You didn't stop by my house this morning like you used to. What happened?
Tara asked Kemi, who quickly made up an excuse on why she did not stop by hers on her way to school that morning. Being her best friend, Tara could sense something off about Kemi. She was on the edge and not as lively as she usually was.
Are you okay, Kemi?
Tara asked, but Kemi gave her a reassuring smile, saying that she was just thinking about the upcoming test.
Oh, that. Mr. Jide said we should focus on the last 6 topics that he taught us in class. I hear that 3 out of the 6 topics will come out in the exam.
And Kemi hissed on hearing this. That's a lot, Tara. How does he expect us to read all that? He should have narrowed the topics down a little, maybe 4 or even 5. Kemi said as they both walked to their classroom, grumbling about the upcoming test. When they arrived at class, a boy named Tayo walked up to Kemi and smiled without saying anything and walked away. This was so strange, as Kemi wondered why he did what he did. Is Tayo the blackmailer? She asked herself as she stared right at him, watching as he walked out of the classroom with his phone in his hand. Just as she sat there confused, trying to figure out what had just happened, a text message dropped on her phone with instructions on what she had to do.
Break into the principal's office and steal the answers to the math test.
Kemi could not believe her eyes. The blackmailer wanted her to steal from the principal's office, an act that could not only get her suspended but also ruin her chances of ever getting into any reputable school in the state. Kemi sat there, convinced that Tayo had something to do with it. She decided to confront him, knowing that something was definitely off with the way he was acting. She walked towards where he was standing, and before she could get to him, Mr. Ogunremi, their math teacher, walked into the classroom for his class. Mr. Ogunremi was the most feared teacher in the school. No one dared to misbehave once he was standing in front of the class, so Kemi quickly took her seat, not wanting to draw any form of attention to herself. Her mind, however, was far from the classroom. She could barely focus on Mr. Oguremi's voice as her thoughts kept drifting back and forth to the text messages that she had received and the possibility of her secret being leaked.
Why does he have to be our master's answers? Mr. Oguremi's cause of all things.
Kemi thought to herself, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. She could not stand being caught and suspended. Neither could she stand her secret being leaked to the entire school. Kemi's heart raced as her hands began to tremble. She looked around the classroom, wondering if the blackmailer was gazing right at her. Kemi could feel the walls closing in on her as she began to feel choked up on her secret. As Mr. Ogunremi continued his math class, Kemi raised up her hand to excuse herself.
Sir, may I use the restroom?
She said as she excused herself from the classroom and made her way to a quiet spot close to the school's library. All Kemi wanted was some peace and quiet, a time alone to enable her think. The corridors were mostly empty as she sat down on a bench and stared down at her phone.
What do I do? What if they really know? What if they tell everyone?
Kemi whispered to herself as she began to panic. Her mind wandered back to that one night, the secret that she thought that she had buried so deep that no one could ever find. But somehow, someone knew and they were using it against her. Kemi was extremely worried as she wondered who the blackmailer could be. Just as she sat there quietly, her phone vibrated again. It was another message that got her heart racing.
Tick tock. Kemi, the clock is ticking. Are you in or do I start talking?
The message read as Kemi's hands began to shake as she typed out a reply.
Why are you doing this? What do you want from me?
Kemi texted the anonymous number, who immediately replied her message saying,
I want you to suffer, just like I did. Follow my instructions now, or the whole school will know your little secret.
Kemi felt the walls close in on her again. She couldn't let this person expose her and knew that she had to do something. She thought about Tayo again, who had been acting strangely around her, and Kemi could not help but ask if he really had something to do with the blackmail.
Could he be the one behind this?
Kemi asked herself as the school bell went off for their lunch break. Students flooded the halls, laughing and talking as they made their way to the school shop. This was her only time to strike, as Kemi knew that the principal would be out for her break. Kemi was left with no other choice than to break into the principal's office, knowing the repercussions of her actions. The office was always locked, and the principal never left her keys lying around in the school. But shockingly, Kemi found the door slightly open. She walked through the door of the office, her heart sinking into her throat as several thoughts ran through her mind.
What if this is a setup?
She thought to herself as she scanned through the office with her eyes and caught sight of a filing cabinet in the corner. With trembling hands, Kemi walked over to the cabinet and tried to tug it open. It's locked, Kemi thought to herself as she pondered on what to do next. Her phone buzzed again. It was the blackmailer, who told her to check the drawer underneath for a spare key. Kemi hesitated for a moment, wondering how the blackmailer knew everything that was happening, as if they were right there, watching her every move. She opened the desk drawer and saw a small key, which she used to unlock the cabinet. Kemi could hear her heart race through her chest as she came across the answer sheet for the upcoming maths test. Kemi's hands began to shake like one who was epileptic. She froze there in shock, wondering what she was going to do with the answer sheet.
Keep the answer sheet in your bag.
The stranger texted again, and Kemi, shaking in fear, quickly put it inside her bag and locked the cabinet. Kemi could not risk anyone meeting her in the principal's office, so she quickly rushed out of the office before anyone would see her. She began to make her way back to her classroom when she got a strong feeling that someone was watching her. Kemi glanced around the hallway, her nerves rising as she wondered who it could be. Suddenly, Tayo appeared at the end of the hall, leaning against the wall with his phone in his hand. He smiled wickedly as their eyes met, sending a cold chill down Kemi's spine.
Was it him? Could he really be the one doing this?
Kemi asked herself as she decided to confront him. Kemi had to find out. With her heart pounding in her chest, she decided to follow Tayo, staying far behind to avoid any form of suspicion. She watched as he walked past the principal's office, glancing over his shoulder before slipping into an empty classroom. This was it. Kemi took a deep breath as she approached the classroom door. Her hands trembled as she pushed it open slightly Peeking inside, Tayo was all alone, pacing nervously as he clutched his phone tightly in his hand. Kemi, filled with so much courage, walked into the classroom to confront him. Tayo, she said.
I know what you are doing. Why are you doing this to me?
Tayo's head snapped up, his eyes widened in surprise, but before he could respond, Kemi's phone buzzed again. She pulled it out, her blood running cold, as she read the message.
Tayo is not your blackmailer. He's my puppet, just like you.
Kemi's heart sank to realize that the real blackmailer was still out there. She began to think of who she had hurt so badly that would stop at nothing to destroy her. Could it be Jamila, the girl she gave a box of poo as a birthday gift? Or Folu, the girl she accused of being behind the vandalization of the school science lab? Or Yemisi, the girl she shaved her head with a scissors while she was fast asleep in class? The possibilities were endless, owing to the fact that Kemi bullied anyone that she believed was weak. She returned to her class and decided to monitor Jamila, Folu and Yemisi, who were currently having a discussion together. What a coincidence, she thought to herself, wondering if they were all in on the blackmail. Her best friend Tara could see how focused she was on them and asked if everything was fine. Kemi, at this point, wished she could let her best friend in on all that had been happening. However, she feared the repercussion of this, owing to the fact that she had a secret to protect. Kemi could never let this happen. Uncovering the identity of the blackmailer was far less risky than losing her best friend, who she loved with all of her heart. So, she smiled at Tara and said that she believed that they were talking about her, hence why she was focused on them to see if truly they were. Tara laughed and reminded Kemi about her doctor's appointment that afternoon. I'll be leaving school by 12, she said, adding that Kemi should not wait for her, as she wouldn't be coming back to school after her doctor's visit. Kemi's mind was still focused on the girls, who she believed were behind the blackmail. It has to be them, she thought to herself, when she received a text that made her sink into her chair.
Destroy Tara, or else I will destroy you. Plant the stolen script in her locker.
Kemi could not believe her eyes. The blackmailer wanted her to destroy her best friend, the only person who she trusted with all of her heart. Kemi could not imagine herself hurting her own best friend. She sat there as she looked right at Tara, who gave her a warm smile. Kemi did not know what to do. She was left with no other option but to do as the blackmailer had ordered, or risk the chances of her secret being exposed to the entire school. Kemi knew that she had to do this, even if it meant doing it in a way that Tara would never find out that she was the one behind it all. So, she began to strategize on how best she would carry out the blackmailer's demand without losing Tara in the process. She could not afford to let her secret slip, but the thought of betraying Tara troubled her conscience greatly. At exactly noon, Tara gathered her things and left for her doctor's appointment. Kemi walked up to her, trying to act as normal as possible. Good luck at the doctor's, Kemi said with a smile that felt painfully forced, assuring her that they would see the next morning. Tara gave her a very tight hug as she headed out of the school for her appointment. Kemi watched in pain as she walked away. A pit of dread settled in her stomach, knowing what she had to do next. Once Tara was gone, Kemi wasted no time because she knew that the blackmailer would be watching, waiting for her to make her move. With the halls now empty, Kemi hurried to Tara's locker, her hands trembling as she opened her bag and pulled out the stolen test answers. She immediately slipped the piece of paper into Tara's locker, her heart pounding with each second that passed. Kemi hated herself for doing what she did, but the blackmailer had left her with no other choice. Just as Kemi finished planting the result in Tara's locker and was making her way back to the classroom, she got a text from the blackmailer that read,
Good job. Now wait for what happens next.
Kemi could feel a cold sweat break out of her forehead. Her legs suddenly felt heavy as the weight of her actions began to slowly weigh down on her. The worst thing wasn't that she betrayed her best friend. It was the fact that she had no idea when or how the blackmailer planned to reveal the setup to the entire school. She was now at their mercy. Her life spiraled further out of control. The next morning, Kemi arrived school, filled with dread, her eyes scanning the hallways for any sign that the trap she had set for Tara had been sprung. She felt sick to her stomach as she spotted Tara chatting with their classmates next to her locker, completely unaware of the storm about to hit her. Kemi kept her distance, unable to bear the guilt of being near her best friend at such a time. But just as she was about to head to class, she saw a group of students gather near Tara's locker. Tara, confused, looked at them as one of the students pulled out the stolen test answers from her locker. It was as if the person knew that the paper was in her locker, and Kemi in that moment knew that the blackmailer was now at work.
"What's this?"
One of them asked, holding up the paper in her hands. Tara's eyes widened in shock to realize that it was the answers to the just concluded maths test.
"This isn't true. I don't know how it got there."
She stammered as her voice began to shake.
"I did not cheat on the test."
Tara said repeatedly as the news got to the principal, who invited her over to her office for questioning. Kemi watched from a distance, her heart breaking as Tara tried to defend herself. She wanted to run up to her, to tell her that everything was a lie, that it was all her fault, but she couldn't. The blackmailer had her completely trapped, not only with her secret, but now with the guilt of what she had done to her best friend. The entire school was now filled with rumors of Tara and the stolen maths test. Kemi could not contain her anger. She had to find out who this blackmailer was and put an end to all the madness. She dropped off her school bag in class and headed towards the principal's office to see what was happening to Tara. Her heart broke to realize that her friend was now being accused falsely because of her. Unable to withstand the guilt, she returned to her classroom and met Jamila, who was busy going through her bag.
"What are you doing there?"
She questioned Jamila, who began to shake in fear, unable to explain what she was doing ransacking Kemi's bag.
"You are the blackmailer, right?"
Kemi asked Jamila, who stammered repeatedly, unable to speak. She grabbed Jamila's phone and angrily went through her text messages and saw the last message that she received from the blackmailer. "I knew it. All this while, you looked so suspicious, and remembering the gift I gave you on your birthday last year, I knew you would stop at nothing to ruin my life. So, where is the thing you said you had against me? I need it now," she demanded as Jamila informed her that she was not the blackmailer. "I thought you were the one blackmailing me, just to mess with my head," she said to Kemi, who opened her mouth in shock to realize that Jamila was also being blackmailed. Jamila in that moment informed Kemi that she saw a note in her bag from the blackmailer with a strange number, telling her to send a text to the number at a stipulated time or else her secret would be exposed. Jamila did as the blackmailer had instructed to keep her secret hidden, not knowing that the number belonged to Kemi. "I was ransacking your bag to check your handwriting to see if it's the same with the writing on the note I received." Kemi then requested to see the note, and Jamila, still shaking, pulled the note out from her bag and handed it over to Kemi, who looked at the note and decided that they secretly checked the books of their classmates to see if they would find a match. After hours of searching, Kemi and Jamila finally found the girl whose handwriting was on the note. Her name was Bami, and they could not understand why Bami would be blackmailing them. They confronted her and realized that Bami was also a victim of the secret blackmailer. Another dead end, they said, as they asked Bami how the blackmailer communicated his blackmails with her, and Bami gave them a phone number which was completely different from the number that Kemi had on her phone. Kemi immediately put a call to the number, watching to see who would answer the call in class. Just as the phone rang, Biodun, the class rep, picked up the phone in front of the class. Kemi realized in that moment that this was a complex web. If all these people are being blackmailed, then the situation was way bigger than she thought. The blackmailer was playing multiple students against each other, and this did not look good because one of these people could actually be the blackmailer, claiming to have been blackmailed themselves. Kemi decided in that moment to keep following the trail of blackmail as this was the only option she had left. "We need to figure this out," Kemi said to Jamila, her fear giving way to determination. "Let's follow the trail. Maybe we can track down the real blackmailer." They followed the trail, uncovering the numerous students who were also suffering in silence with a blackmail that hung over their head like a dark cloud, forcing them to do things like puppets on strings. Just as they moved around, following the trail of communication of the blackmailer, Tayo, Kemi's first suspect, sent a text message to the entire class confessing to be the blackmailer. Everyone opened their eyes in shock as they never expected it to be him. Tara was escorted into the classroom in that moment to grab her school bag, tears pouring down her eyes as she hugged Kemi and informed her that she was being suspended for 2 weeks. Kemi was so furious. She could not believe that Tayo blackmailed her into ruining her best friend's life. She decided to confront him, to know why he did what he did, but Tayo was nowhere to be found. She was told that he left the school premises immediately after sending the messages, and Kemi decided to go in search of him after school hours. Just as she sat at her desk, waiting for the school bell to ring, the principal walked into her class angrily and ordered her to meet her in her office. Kemi's heart began to beat as she wondered why she was being summoned by the principal. With her heart pounding, she gently walked to the principal's office, several thoughts running through her mind in that moment. Just as she arrived at the principal's office, the principal informed her that she received the pictures. "I am so disappointed in you, Kemi," she said as she heaved a sigh of disappointment. Kemi stood there silent as she watched her whole world crumble before her eyes. Which pictures? She thought to herself, her heart racing, wondering if the pictures were from the event of the other night. "I am doomed," Kemi said to herself as she began to shiver. Her temperature suddenly began to rise as her head ached in a way that it had never ached before. The principal stood there quietly as she looked down at her phone and shook her head repeatedly. After a few minutes, the principal informed Kemi that she had been suspended indefinitely for breaking into her office and stealing the test answers and framing another student for the crime. Kemi's heart relaxed. On hearing this, she knew this was serious, but not as serious as the secret that she had fought so hard to keep hidden. She could deal with this, but wasn't sure how she would deal with the whole school, knowing what she did the other night. The principal sent her out of school immediately, and Kemi left the school premises, determined to bring this blackmailing to a halt. She knew that she had to protect her secret with all that she got, and this entailed going in search of Tayo, who claimed to be behind all the blackmailing. She asked to know where he lived and was directed to one slum at the end of town. Kemi had never been to a place like this in her life. She asked around and was directed to a small house close to the swamp. Kemi knocked on the door of the house and was shocked to see her in his home. He looked so tense and terrified, and Kemi could not help but feel as though he was hiding something.
"Do you have something to tell me?"
she asked Tayo, who confessed to her that he was forced to do what he did.
"What? Forced? By who?"
Kemi asked as Tayo handed his phone over to her and told her to read the message written on the screen.
Admit that you are the blackmailer, or all your secrets will be out in the open for all to see.
Kemi copied down the phone number, because she had a strong feeling that it belonged to the real blackmailer. She decided not to use her own phone number to call the number, knowing that the blackmailer already had her number saved. She returned home and got a new SIM card, which she used to call the number. On first ring, the person did not pick, but Kemi decided to try again, and a faint voice answered the phone, requesting to know who was calling. Kemi dropped the phone, her heart racing as she realized who the blackmailer was. She called up her best friend Tara, panicking, requesting to know where she was.
I have something important to discuss with you,
She said as she rushed over to Tara's house. When she arrived, Tara was eager to know what she had to say.
I think I've figured out who the school blackmailer is.
Kemi said to Tara as she brought out her phone and began to dial the number. You need to listen to this, she said to Tara, whose eyes widened in shock to realize that Kemi was the one calling her second number, the line she used to blackmail the students to cover up her tracks and pretend to be a victim herself. How could you do this to me? Kemi asked her best friend Tara, who did not look remorseful for all that she had done. You ruined my life, and you dare stand here to ask stupid questions. Tara fired back at Kemi, who stood there confused, unsure of what Tara was talking about. I took you as my best friend, Kemi, not knowing how evil you were. I know your secret, and I will make sure that once I'm done with you, you'll regret the day that our paths crossed. Kemi could sense the anger in Tara's voice and wondered what she had done to deserve this level of hatred from her best friend. August 19th, 10 p.m., Tara said as she looked Kemi in the eyes and said that she had pictures. Kemi, on hearing this, fell to the ground and began to cry. I didn't mean to kill her, Kemi said as tears poured down her eyes. The weight of her secret crashed down on her, breaking her spirit in a way that she could not understand. She tried everything possible to bury that night deep within her soul, hoping that it would never resurface, but here it was, staring her right in the face, brought back by the one person that she thought that she could trust with her life. August 19th. Kemi had replayed that night over and over in her head a million times, unable to believe that things. August 19th. Kemi had replayed that night over and over in her head a million times, unable to believe that things had escalated so quickly. It was late, and Kemi was heading home from choir practice when a strange girl, who she had never seen before, confronted her and accused her of having a thing to do with her boyfriend Jide. Kemi was shocked to hear of this accusation, knowing that she had nothing to do with Jide. She tried to explain to the girl that Jide was only a friend, but the girl was not willing to listen. She pulled out a knife and tried to stab Kemi, who pushed her hard, resulting in her death. Kemi never meant to kill her. She was only defending herself, and before she knew what was happening, the strange girl lost her balance and stumbled backwards. Her feet caught the edge of the pavement and she fell to her death. Kemi remembered the sickening crack as the girl's head hit the side of the concrete. The world stopped in that instant as Kemi rushed to her side to check on her. She shook her body repeatedly, trying to get a response, but the girl did not respond. Her eyes stared blankly at the night sky, and a thin trail of blood began to pool under her head. Kemi panicked. She had no idea what to do in that moment. All she knew was that the girl was no longer moving or breathing. Kemi ran as fast as her legs could carry her. She fled the scene, leaving the girl there in the street, knowing that no one would believe her if she narrated her story. She returned home and locked herself up in her room, unable to believe that she had just killed a girl. In that moment, she decided to keep it to herself, convinced that what she did was in defense of her life. I didn't mean to kill her, Kemi cried as tears poured down her eyes. It was just one push. Tara, I swear, I didn't mean to kill her. Tara's face remained cold, unmoved by Kemi's cries. Do you think that matters now? Wumi is dead and you left her there, alone like a coward. You could have saved her, but you didn't, you ran. I was scared, Kemi shouted, her voice trembling. I didn't know what to do. Please, Tara, you have to believe me. Tara shook her head slowly, her eyes narrowing. I used to think you were my friend, Kemi. I used to look up to you, but all you ever did was hurt people. You bullied them, pushed them around, and made them feel small. Wumi was my cousin. I knew what happened that night, but I kept quiet for a while. I wanted to see if you had a conscience, but you didn't. You went on living your life like nothing had happened, whilst our family mourned. Kemi, for all this time, never knew that Wumi was Tara's cousin, the one she saw Tara mourn for months on end. On the day that Wumi died, she went to Tara's house to complain about some girl who was messing around with her boyfriend. She was filled with so much anger and said to Tara that she was going to teach the girl a lesson that night. Tara did everything possible to dissuade her from attacking this said girl, but Wumi was too stubborn to listen. All the while, Tara never knew that the girl her cousin was ranting about was her best friend Kemi. She followed her from a distance and hid in the corner, watching all that was happening. Little did she know that her cousin Wumi had a knife on her. Before she could do anything, Wumi had already fallen and hit her head on the concrete. It was in that moment that she realized that the girl Wumi had gone to fight was her best friend Kemi. I took pictures that night. Pictures that constantly reminded me of the devil that I had for a friend, Tara said, as Kemi fell to her knees and began to beg for forgiveness. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't tell anyone. I'll confess to Wumi's family. I'll make it right. But please, don't ruin my life. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tara looked down at Kemi. Her expression, a mixture of anger and disgust. Sorry won't bring Wumi back, will it? You ruined our lives, Kemi, and you are here, pleading with me not to ruin yours. Kemi's heart shattered on hearing these words. The weight of her actions, the guilt she had carried for so long, now felt unbearable. She had lost her best friend, and now she was at the brink of losing everything that she held so dear. Tara, I can't bring Wumi back, she whispered, but I'm ready to face the truth. I'll confess. I'll go to the police. I'll tell them everything. I can't live with this guilt any longer, Kemi said as she walked out of Tara's house, determined to do the right thing. She knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in a long while, Kemi felt a sense of relief in her heart. She was willing to confess and seek redemption from Wumi's family, not caring about the consequences of doing so. The next morning, Kemi paid a visit to Wumi's family and apologized for all that happened, narrating the entire story to them. The room was so quiet as the entire family's eyes focused on her. Wumi's mother, on hearing the story, let out a very loud cry, her hand flying to her mouth as the tension in the room thickened. I didn't mean for it to happen, Kemi pleaded with Wumi's mother, who spoke to her, her voice soft but filled with grief. You took my daughter away from me, Kemi. You left her there, alone, and you lived your life while we buried her. How could you? Kemi's heart shattered on hearing this. However, she knew that there were no words she could say to take away their pain. She had come to confess and seek their forgiveness, though a part of her hoped for some form of understanding. I'm ready to face the consequences of my actions, Kemi said quietly, informing Wumi's parents of her decision to turn herself in to the police. I just needed you to know the truth about your daughter's death and hope you find it in your heart to forgive me. Wumi's father finally stopped pacing, turning to face Kemi as he said, turning yourself in won't bring Wumi back. From your explanation, it was obviously a mistake as our daughter attacked you. It's such a painful loss for us all, but we should not be blind to the fact that you too were a victim. Our daughter Wumi was such a sweet girl, But her struggles with anger was something that she constantly battled with. We can't stand back and watch you ruin your life because of an accident that could have happened to anyone. Our daughter threatened you with a knife, and it is expected for you to also defend yourself. It's sad that it ended this way, but we forgive you, knowing that you never meant to kill her. Tara, on hearing this, held Kemi's hands and informed her that she had forgiven her. Kemi could not believe her ears. She knew how hot they were, but seeing them forgive her was something she never saw coming. She stood there as tears of disbelief poured down her face. The weight she had carried for so long lifted as Wumi's parents and Tara extended their hands of forgiveness to her. It wasn't the outcome she had expected, but it was what she so desperately needed. Kemi bowed her head, humbled by their mercy. She couldn't speak, but her silence was filled with deep gratitude. She turned to look at Tara, who now looked so uneasy and tense. Her body shook like one who had just seen a ghost, and before Kemi could ask what the problem was, Tara ran out of the house in terror, leaving everyone puzzled at what she could have seen. The lesson to be learned from this story is that nothing remains hidden forever. We should learn to seek forgiveness from people that we have wronged and also learn to control our anger, because anger is a spirit that oftentimes leads to destruction. The story also shows the damaging effect of secrets, which can ruin our lives and the lives of those around us. So, learn to be honest in whatever you do and live in peace with all men, showing kindness and compassion to everyone you come across. I hope you enjoyed the story.